Yeah, I mean, we talked about it this morning, just this idea of like being with other people to help me, especially going through the ministry and the difficulties that it presents. But knowing that like God has provided the means to help me. And I have those means right now and I'm using them. So it's been encouraging to see that.
Good deal. We'll go on this.
All right. Yeah, similar actually for me. Nathan, is, you said God will provide help. Right at the end, you said something like, so find it, and it's kind of like I'm looking here and it's, He equips us in every good thing, and it's just an encouraging thought for me. It's like, I don't know how exactly God helps and motivates and His people, but that was just a good little encouragement. Go out and find it, I'm giving you something here in this sermon, but there's so much more. Find it. So thanks for that.
Yeah. I was encouraged by similar themes, but mostly by the fact that God provides for all our needs, especially as it relates to our ministry context. He's not left us out to dry in ministry just as much as He hasn't left us out to dry in any other way in our life.
I think I really liked your sermon, man, and I like it. Just I think as you were preaching, the text kind of like snaps together in my head, and I was like, oh, yeah, I do need these things to be able to do what Hebrews is talking about, and so I was just like, it was really cool to hear that and put all those connections together. So thanks.
It's encouraging to hear, remember that God, yes, He wants us to do His will, but He is the one that provides and equips us, helps us to do that. And so we get so focused on wanting to do things, but remembering and looking to the one who helps us to do those things.
Yeah, similar to everybody else, I was encouraged to just this whole piece, or your emphasis on continuing on to the end. That it's not just help in general, but the help to continue in with what I felt and what I heard, and what I was greatly encouraged by. So tell us, what could you have done to improve?
Yeah, I mean, one of the bigger things that I was kind of wish that I spent a little bit more time. I think I definitely spent more time in the latter half. And I didn't really get into how Jesus, like the whole shepherd thing, so I wish I focused on that, stayed on that a little bit longer. Because I think it is helpful for this especially. And I had more time too, so.
I was thinking that, and I haven't spent the time in the text, obviously, that you have, and so I could be wrong. But I was thinking that you would come across, to me, a bit more commanding. And I was thinking the text was a little more comfort. So there's something in the tone there that, for me, I didn't see it. That's, like I say, it could have been because I didn't study as much, or...
From a content perspective, I didn't have a lot of issues. Delivery was good. I think we all have natural paces that we go at, and you fall into a predictable pace, kind of a faster first half of your sentence that then slows down towards the end. So probably just try to vary the pace at which you deliver sentences.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
But I know that we all have natural ways of doing it, so we're not really consciously thinking about it.
And now I will be, so thank you.
I thought you did a pretty good job on your first point with talking about how the peace that Jesus Christ won allows God to help us. I think. And I don't I think overall, I don't have a lot of problems with your sermon. I think you could press just a little bit deeper, as you said, like how does God help us? And then just get like real practical with that. And even throw in illustrations as to like how God can help you persevere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agreed with like what Trevor was saying about the tone. This is seemed to be more of a comfort and encouraging word to them, and I think you're doing a good job on talking about how one of the ways that God is helping these people is through this writer here. But then bringing that home to us and helping us be like, okay, like who are the people that God has placed in your life already? Like, you've given that call for us to look for people, that we need people, but like, how has God already been helping you in your ministry? How has God already been helping you in your life? And even sharing maybe some of the things that God has provided in your life, so that we can look back and be encouraged.
I'm hearing that it's maybe a personal text, so I should have been a little bit more personal. Maybe.
There's room for that.
Yeah.
In addition to what everyone else has said, which I agree with, I think and just something you've already said, I think you could have done a little more exegetical work on the first part. I mean, it's not a lot of text, but the text that is there sort of left me wondering, okay, well, what is this now about? I mean, why does he say the great shepherd of the sheep brought up from the dead, or the blood of the eternal covenant? And even if it had just been a sentence or two, that somehow or another you could tie it back to, I mean, this God has power to resurrect. I mean,
Yeah.
resurrection power, or something about he has power to keep his promises, or something that even if you didn't spend a lot of time on unpacking every phrase, you could have made reference to it, and then that would have taken that off my plate, because I kept looking like, okay, what is this? I catch it, if I understand it. Let's keep going.
Smaller thing, when you're talking about doing every good thing according to his will, then you made a statement, something like this, before you go on to thinking that this is about like a bigger ministry or something. Kind of let me explain to you what it means to do God's will and that every good thing. I would suggest just rephrasing it a little bit, because it's assuming that we are thinking that way.
Yeah.
And maybe even just saying like, now sometimes we think that this would be too. And then it just would help me kind of follow that line, because if you say it and I'm not thinking that way, then I'm sort of lost in that.
There needs to be an in-between that makes you think that way or leads you towards that.
Yeah,
That's good.
So just like the last day of school, the last game of the season has a different feel, even though you're playing the same game. I think one good thing.
I wouldn't know I didn't play sports.
That's why I said school. So a lot of things you did well was hitting some of the major themes in the book, which were in the text. But I felt like, let's just say that you had just preached this all the way through the book of Hebrews, which we've been doing. I feel like there would have been space to sort of grab the congregation or the leaders by the shoulders and be like, look, we just got through this. These are kind of my final words from this book. Like, let's talk real soberly right now about, X, Y, Z. So I feel like it's not a radically different sermon from everything else, but I was kind of looking for that
conclusion,
wrapping the bow on this book kind of vibe that I didn't necessarily get. It felt sort of just like any sermon in this series.
Conclusions are hard.
Again, like I think like content structure was like really good. I think it's a really minor thing, but I think
Go for it.
it's like colored your sermon a little bit more. So it was very like this is what the text says and what it means. I think like if you wanted to do some more like context work, like what kind of stuff are they like enduring through? Like you can remember through the book, like these are the types of things they're suffering through. you wanted to put in some illustrations to sort of like, it wouldn't change like what you said or like how you, or like your structure or anything. It just would like add some more stuff. So like, add some spice to your sermon a bit. So.
Yeah, I put a question mark regarding when you're talking about do his will, and obviously that's a big thing. You know, and you just kind of like nicely summarize it as like practicing righteousness. But maybe even just kind of bring in some of the things that were in the context. Like he had already given a bunch of imperatives. You know, bringing those things
okay.
like, in light as an example of these things are God's will for us. And even your melodic line that you brought in later, which was, I mean, a good line for the book, but like, this is God's will for us in Christ Jesus, and he gives us the power to do these things.
So I agree with Leo. I thought if you had enough time left, if you had done a little more careful editing, as well as maybe illustrating, it could have helped with the whole vibe, as well as the tone moving from commanding to comfort. And it's just a good to great thing. I mean, it was good, but I think it could have been better with some more, just going back over some of the lines. Like, and there were a couple of places, like for one, you said something on verse.
It's like twice.
21, where you were saying, well, God is working for us. But I don't know if it's my translation, but my translation, he's working in us.
Oh.
That which is pleasing.
Maybe I was just, you bring out implications.
Working right now.
You're saying working in us too?
No.
I think that's a big difference. And I don't think you were making a big point about it, but I think that's just one of those
little.
issues. We're just going back through it over a little bit more. You could have cleaned that up, and maybe it is something worth looking at. Anyway, what did you do well?
I thought I applied it to this context pretty decently. I think that was one thing that I was definitely trying to be more application. So I think I was helpful with that.
Okay.
I appreciated the structure, and it was clear where you're going, where you're starting, and I liked how all the way through your main point, this idea of like God providing help, just kept coming up, and so it that part was very clear in my mind.
Yeah, I alluded to it earlier, but I do think that you were faithful to the entirety of the book in this last sermon without it becoming a sermon on just the great themes of the book. So that balance, I do feel like, was struck well.
I thought you presented yourself well. The way you illustrate, the way you preach, the clarity of your points. It just like, it felt like you were very confident in what you had to say, and you delivered it very, very well. So on like, I guess aesthetic points on those fronts, like I thought you did a really great job, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, I thought you did well from the introduction, this idea help is wanted, and you brought it back at the end to even just your transition between point 1 and 2 is good. Good job.
That's good. I literally was going to say exactly the same thing. And in addition to that, there were, I thought the summary piece of the summary or melodic line, how we put it, that was an example of where I felt you carefully edited something and it like landed squarely. And I was like, that's exactly right. And it felt very satisfying too. So I would just encourage you to do that same thing, just sort of throughout it. So the introduction, the transition, the summary, I thought was very carefully edited and worded.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you can
Do
do
that.
that consistently all the
Gotcha.
way through, then that would really, you'd be really making.
Move it up a level. Thanks.
Small thing I noticed that I think I failed to do, so it just helped me as I was listening to you, is you said, you know, we need help in the church, and then just before getting into the main body, you said help is provided in this passage, something like that. And I think often I have a bit of an intro, but it just kind of gets lost somewhere, and then I get into it. So it was a really nice, like, yeah, I guess transition line there.
So, your title, main point, and homiletical outline weren't like the flashiest things in the world, which is fine, but they work together well. I didn't feel like anything was veering off into some random direction. You're like, why is that the title, or why is that a point? So, that was good.
In particular on your like second point, I thought you like did a pretty good job like stretching the application out in like a bunch of different ways. It's like you need God and you need people in your lives to endure and make it through. And then when you like I don't know, when you get these two axes of the law, then you realize like, what did you say here? You also see how like you need to help others, and then flipped it in another way. I just thought like how you took that point and just flipping it in a bunch of different ways to apply it was really good. So
Now, even though it is a comforting tone, I thought you did well to try to, you know, stretch out these applications and even bring in that warning there, like, we do need people. Even leaders, we need people.
Yeah.
And even in an encouraging way, you were saying, like, they need you too. Whether you meant it like that or not, but, like, they need you. Like, the body needs you as a leader that God's placed there to help them. So, that's good.
In sync with everything that they just said, I just add, I thought that you did it not just in the conclusion, but even at the beginning, as you were coming into even in the transition. There's a few places in here where you just had like a sentence that was just well worded and well placed. At the beginning, you said we need not just, you said we need help in our own hearts. And then at the end, you said something about not just helping others, but helping other churches. I thought that's a really good sort of reminder, good stretching or flipping of the application. So it's not just the anticipated thing that we would expect you to say, but it's an application that I had thought about. There's like clear in the text. It's like, yeah, you're right. You said that. Now I'll think about that more. I thought that was really good.
Crap.